What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. We got a lot in store for what we got to do to the S10 today, so really need to get to it. A quick overview on where we're at right now. We just got the radiator installed with the electric fans. I got all the wiring done. This is not hooked up, and it's not going to be hooked up right now. I got the transmission cooler lines that still need to be hooked up. A few things on the top end. I got this vacuum line. You can see this T here with two vacuum lines needs to get hooked up. A little cool thing with that is I am going to use the EGR vacuum portion of the intake to connect to this because I don't have another vacuum port available right now and I'm not using any of the EGR stuff. So that just makes it nice and easy to actually hook or connect the vacuum lines up. So this vacuum line actually goes into the truck. It is for the vents. All of that's vacuum operated to adjust your hot and cold and your airflow. So, well, you have the blower motor too that adjusts the airflow, but I guess it's for mixing everything, mixing your hot and cold and kind of the direction of your vents and such. So I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of what it is. So I obviously need that to hook up so I can have that stuff work. And like I said, we made this adapter. My dad did this nylon adapter that takes the EGR connection point and allows us to use this barb connection to connect to the vacuum line. I will need a longer vacuum line to actually run it because I want to run it behind everything and, you know, make it look a lot neater than what it is right now. So that's just another item I got to do. Yeah, there's actually quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and go to the board and show where we're at. Alright, so here is the board. I have quite a few things on this board, and we're slowly knocking everything off, as you can see. So if we start on this left side, we have the air Faber-by intake that uses MAF and install the filter. That's going to get done. Exhaust needs to be fabbed. That is almost done. Wheel bearings. So this truck does need wheel bearings from before I parked it to do the swap. So that's just one thing that we have to get done. Install oil filter, that's pretty obvious. Install starter, another obvious one. I have add oil in oil filter and oil, so repeating that one. Add fluids, trans power steering and coolant, rad hoses, trans cooler lines, AC lines, hook up all grounds, make new windshield washer lines, adjust the throttle cable, vent cooler crossover tube, and vacuum for climate control like I was just discussing earlier. So there's still a few things on here, but it's really nothing that crazy. I think where we're gonna start today will be the trans cooler lines. I'm gonna try to getting those fabbed up and then probably work on the grounds and finish up the wiring. All of that's on the underside of the truck, so it's really not that bad. Yeah, that shouldn't be bad at all, and I think that's where I'm going to get to, at least for today. Interior wiring, not too worried about. That is for my switch for the demonize, so it's nothing major, and that's a quick thing that I'm not even going to show. The AC lines we're not worried about right now because, one, it's winter time, and two, you don't need AC to run the truck, so that's probably going to be one of the last things that we do on this truck. But other than that, I mean, we still got quite a bit of stuff to do, so we're going to go ahead and get to it. Looking at the radiator, it is hard to see, but there is one trans cooler line up top, and there's one down here on the bottom side. It is not an AN connection. If you guys remember from the trans cooler video, we are using AN connections for our trans cooler lines. So I have an adapter to adapt the threading on this radiator to an AN connection. That way we can put our AN connections on. Well, you can see we have our two lines. I have them labeled, or they should be labeled. This one I have labeled as top, and this one should be the bottom then. Yep, bottom. So I have them labeled on where they need to go on the trans cooler built into the radiator to make my life easier down the road. I will be putting 90-degree adapters on here so that they can run straight down. I will also need a way of tying them down on the lower side of the truck so it doesn't end up in the serpentine belt or any of that system. Just want to be mindful of that. So I'm going to go ahead and get the components out, and then I will kind of show you what I'm doing. Okay guys, so now I have all the pieces I'm going to need for this, really. These are the adapters that I need for to go into the radiator, and then on the other side there's a cover on it, a cap, and that's what adapts to the AN fitting. Over here I have 90-degree connections. That's what I'm going to use to run the hoses down, and these are the type that have this long nipple. And what you do is you're going to screw the hose into this end here, and then you'll screw the whole assembly onto this one. The other type is for the line that can support E85. It has the nylon tube inserted into it. I did not use that for the transcooler because, one, it won't be operating at that pressure, or high enough pressure to need that. Two, they're a little bit more flexible because they don't have that nylon tube within it. And three, it's not going to erode or anything with that, and it's just a lot easier to work with and put on. So that's the reasoning behind using that type of hose, that type of line for this. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put these on. I'm going to have to put Teflon tape on the end of the adapter, put the adapter in, same thing with this one. Once we have that, then I can go ahead and cut the AN line to where I need it to be, then attach the AN ends onto the line, and then we can actually go and put it on. So that's kind of the whole game plan here, and I'm going to go ahead and show what I'm doing. This radiator, while it's not a bad radiator, it does have one flaw for at least LS's that makes it a little more difficult. It's more set up for a 350 Chevy, or any small block Chevy for that matter, but the radiator inlet and outlet, one's on the top of the opposite side of the engine bay, the driver's side, and the other is at the bottom of the passenger side. Well, both of your radiator inlet and outlet are on your passenger side of the vehicle, so that means I'm going to have one line coming all the way across. While on a 350, it's top to top, bottom to bottom, so it's a little bit better. So there are radiators where they have the inlet and outlet on the same side. I don't know how that goes for transmission cooling, but this is what I have, and we're going to make it work. So just wanted to put that little advisory out. And now I have the Teflon tape on. Sure it's not covering. See, the Teflon tape's now on. I know that's blurry. I'm sorry about that. That's just the capabilities of the camera, but have that on, so I should be able to actually install it now. Have it hand tight now. I do have a socket and a ratchet to put on it to actually get it tight and get a nicer seal, but it is on there for now. So now I'm gonna do the next one. We are now up under the truck. I actually just made this little bracket right here that connects to the transmission bell housing and then the oil pan. And all that is just to allow me to get a zip tie to hold these transmission lines over so that they're not flopping all about. So it gives it a pretty clean run. Made it out of aluminum, so I don't need to worry about paint. I can paint it later if I want to, but for now I'm not. Just make it a lot cleaner. Come back over to this side, and you can see that I have, let me get it to focus. I have the bracket installed. The lines are ran under it. I currently have them pulled out right now because I am working on cutting the lines to length and hooking them up. So I'm not going to show that. I've already shown in previous videos how to put on AN lines, and there's also a ton of information on that on YouTube and on the internet. So not going to show that, but I'm going to go ahead and get it done, and then I'll show you the end result once I'm finished. As y'all can see in this update, I have finished the transmission lines, making them. So here's the upper transmission line, comes down, runs along the fan all the way down to the underside of the engine, and then the lower one is right there, and everything is connected. This one does have to run along the fan shroud because of this lower radiator hose that's going here. I do have a section of that done already, and all I did was I found a hose that I could just cut into this elbow. I have that, so now I can actually put that on. I'm still looking for an upper radiator hose. It's got to get from the water pump all the way to the other side of the radiator right there. So still need to get that. I found one that's close, but it was about hose width too short, so I need to get one that's a little wider. I'm probably gonna have to go to an auto parts store and see if they'll let me in the back to look at them. But slowly getting the radiator all plumbed up. I do have this vent connected. I have the runs ran. I just got to get hose clamps for them so that we can secure that. But like I said, we're pretty much almost done with the radiator. This bung right here is for the overflow, which is right here. So that'll just, you know, go right on if I can actually do it. There we go. Go right on and then clamp. So we do have that already done. We just haven't connected it yet because I want to get all the other stuff done first. But we're really not too far off from actually getting this started. So what I'm going to be doing next is I got to put the starter on. That's pretty important if you want to start the truck. Go ahead and fill up the oil filter. I am running 5W30 right now because they didn't have the normal 10W30 I run in all my 5.3 LS powered vehicles. So I'll fill up the oil filter with that. The 5W30 I think is actually what's recommended for these engines from GM, but I just like running the 10W30. So I will get the oil filter filled, install that. I will get all the not all the exhaust ran, but I'll get at least up to the O2 sensors ran on the exhaust so that we have O2 sensors. Need to connect the computer up, and that's just, I mean, putting the connectors in and screwing it down. And then I need to lower the truck down, fill the engine with oil, and then put the battery in. We'll pretty much be ready to start at that point, at least get a test start. Before we can start it, I'm gonna have to turn it on so my dad can pull the program from the computer. That way we can go ahead and make all our modifications to the tune on it and get a bass tune in. So yeah, it sounds like a lot when you explain it out like that, but it's really not too far off from getting this first start on, so we're gonna go ahead and get that done. Also, when we go and pull the test tune, or pull the tune out, that will, when you turn the key, it will activate the, or turn the ignition, I guess, that will activate the fuel pump to prime, so we will be checking for leaks as well. I also got 5 gallons of fresh ethanol-free gas that I'm going to be putting in the tank because this truck has been sitting for a while, so go ahead and get that in and hopefully start it today. I don't know, we'll see. Alright folks, it's quite a bit later and we have made quite a bit of progress so far. Most noticeably that you can see is I have the exhaust on right now. So we have the downpipes coming from the manifolds on both sides, come into the V-bands, one on either side, to our Y-pipe, and then I just have it out to the Y-pipe right now. Just for first start sake. I mean, we don't really have quite the rest done right now. Have the wideband hooked up right here. I have one O2 sensor hooked up over here. Need to tighten it. And I got the other O2 sensor right here. So exhaust is good. I have an oil filter on with oil in it. I still need to fill the engine with oil, but that will come when I bring the truck down. As you can notice, have one of my wheels off. There is a reason to that. I was finally able to get the starter in. So this starter was a pain to put in for me. One was this gap in here, not very large, not large at all to put that starter in. So that was one issue. Another issue is if you look on this side where you can see the bolts to hold the starter in. This bolt, you may notice, if it comes straight down, it runs into this bracket that holds your lower control arm in. Well, that bolt is pretty significantly long. It's at least 4.5 inches, 4 inches, somewhere around there. You can't quite just stick it up through in because of this mount for your lower control arm. So what we had to do to take that in is we had to remove the bolt for the motor mount on this passenger side. So once we did that, then we could actually push the engine up enough, put the bolt in while we're trying to install it, and get it screwed in. Now, the problem with that is once we had the starter in finally, it was very difficult to put the bolt in for the motor mount. We're actually going through this gap right here above your upper control arm and under the manifold to get it in, and that was very hard to do. We did have the exhaust off for that. Besides the manifold, we still had the manifolds on, but manifolds down we had off, and it was very, very difficult to get that in because that motor mount bolt, it actually hit the starter when you try to put it in. So we were dealing with a lot of obstacles, but finally we were able to get it in. It is capable of being done. It just took a lot more time than what it should have. So yeah, we're pretty much wrapped up down here on the bottom for the first start. So I'm going to lower the truck down, put the wheel on, and put oil in the engine, and we will pretty much be there, I'm thinking. Then we can put the battery on, get the tune information, and move forward. So yeah, I just wanted to give you all a quick little update on where we're at. Oil's in, got the lower radiator hose on. As you can see, it fits on pretty well. Like I said previously, I need to get clamps for this vent for the cooling system. Still need to get the upper radiator hose. Working on that. Still got to find the right size one. But when I do find it, I'll let you know. It might not matter because I will more than likely be using a different radiator than y'all will be in your setup, but I mean, I'll let you know what I'm using. It may or may not work. So I did connect up the plugs for the computer right here. All I really need to do is get the battery in and we're ready to go. So like I said, oil's in, check that, all that's good. No leaks from the bottom, at least that I can see so far. I got the wheel on like I said I would, so we are pretty dang close with it now, yeah. Alright guys, if you're looking real close, you can notice there's a little something different. Got the battery in temporarily, I don't have the tray in, so it's just kind of sitting there. I had it connected last night, and we tried giving the truck power. Truck got power, lights lit up, the dash lit up. So we did run into a small issue yesterday, and that was where when I turned the key on, dash lit up. Only thing is the fuel gauge wasn't working, which is weird. Was not happy about that because it should have been working. And then we tried to connect the laptop with HP tuners up, and we couldn't get a signal to it, which caught me by surprise as well. I was like, man, I don't understand why none of this is working. So we ended it there for the night because it was getting late, and we wanted to do some research and whatnot. So overnight I was thinking about it, and I thought I figured it out. What I was thinking was all of those data cables go in through one connector into the truck, not including the power, but like the data cable is giving the information to the dash and whatnot. So I was like, maybe I forgot to plug that connector in. Well, turns out that was the problem. At least that's what the power was for the fuel gauge. We haven't tested HB tuners yet. I'm waiting for my dad to get home before we test it. But yeah, so I'll show you what that connector was. That connector does feed a lot of the cables into the cab. That's what that connector's for. So it feeds the fuel gauge positioning cable in, and it also feeds the OBD2 cable, the data cable for OBD2, which would explain why we weren't able to read it. So in theory it all should work, and if so, I will let you guys know, but I'll show you where that connector is. So if we look over here on this passenger side, right past where I have the ECU, it's this connector. So this connector is what goes into the cab of the truck and goes to the dash and the OBD2 and a bunch of other things, but this wasn't plugged in. As soon as I plugged it in, then it started working. Another issue that I ran into, and this one's completely my fault as well, is that connector being unplugged, but I put my fuse in today for my wideband and it was not working. Couldn't figure out why it wasn't turning on, so I was like, okay, well, I got another fuse for my sub, so I'll just go ahead and plug that one in and see if I wanted to see if the fuse block was working, the relay fuse block. So it's like, I'll put the fuse in for the sub and see if the sub works. Well, I did that. I walk over to the window of the truck and, well, the wideband was on, so I obviously did not label those properly. So that's an easy fix. I know which spot they're in, so it's not really that big of a deal. Now, the one thing that is a big deal is I realized I have the wideband powered on all the time. I don't have it on ignition power, so I'm gonna have to change that out because I definitely don't want it to be on all the time. I want it to be on ignition power. To when you have the key on, the wideband's on. When you have the key off, it's off. So I got to go around and fix that, figure out what I'm going to do for that. But yeah, I mean, we're making progress and we are getting there. So wanted to give you all that little update. I will update you a little bit later. Actually, I have one more thing to show y'all. So I went to AutoZone. I asked if I could go to the back to look at the radiator hoses. I had the dimensions from end to end that I needed. I knew it needed to be a 90 coming this way to a 90 that way. And I went back there and I was actually able to find this radiator hose, and if you look, it fits on that end and it goes right up to that end. I am gonna have to do some trimming on this to make it shorter on this side. I haven't decided quite which orientation I want it because this does have a little kink in it, but yeah, I was actually able to find a radiator hose and I was really shocked about that, that I could actually find one, because I was actually looking last night at custom kits for building one and I'm glad I didn't have to do that. So I'll go ahead and give you all the number on this. It's a Continental radiator hose, and here is the part number for it. I believe it's that E71981 part number. Another thing that we did find is there is a fuel leak. So you can kind of see it right here. We did have the pump turn on when I turned the ignition on. I didn't go to the starter, but I did get the ignition switched to prime the fuel pump, and we do have a small leak here, which appears to be right above the tank. So I'm hoping that's not one of the connections at the tank, but it might be, unfortunately. So we'll just have to find out where that's coming from. Ho ho ho!
And life.
Try it again?
Yeah. You know what pressure?
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Alright, now do it. Might have to get a little gas.
Huh?
You might have to get a little gas.
Pressure.
Did you?
Yeah.
Alright.
Again?
Yeah. Good. Seems like it's almost like it ain't getting enough fuel.
It's sitting at 15 on the wideband just now when I saw it go.
So that's lean. But as soon as I hit the throttle, it dies.
Oh, there's fuel pressure.
Yep, there's fuel pressure on it.
What do you have the injector set to?
I haven't touched injectors. You don't have to. Do it again. I'm trying.
Again?
Yeah. That's right. Alright.
You got up to 60 there.
Right. Good deal.